To the Complete Solution Group podcast. We've got a really interesting podcast today. We've got a guest named Todd Carmack. He is a financial advisor, investment advisor representative for Bedrock Investment Advisors. And, John and I both retired last year from the government. And in retirement, you start to get worried about where your money's going, how you're going to invest in your future. And, I think it's really important out there for federal employees and everyone that's looking, toward their retirements, whether you're beginning your career or close to the end of your career, that you really start looking at retirement financial planning. So we've got a really interesting guest today. He's definitely got experience in especially the federal employee end of that. And, this is just going to be a really, really interesting show. John and I will share some of our insights on what we went through in retirement, because look, it's not an easy road to go down. There's a lot of mistakes that get made, both on our end and also on the end of the people that are processing your paperwork. And you've got to be aware of that in order to catch those mistakes. So I'm going to kick it over to Martinez and we're going to get on with the show.
All right. Thanks, Fab. And just to piggyback on that, a couple of folks have reached out to Fab and I since our retirement, asking us like, hey, what to expect. And that's something we'll cover here. That way you'll see what's behind the curtain of retirement and just some best practices and kind of if I had to go back and do my career again, what I would do. But I'll turn it over to Todd. So Todd, good morning. Thanks for joining us. And how's everything going for you?
Wonderful. It's a little chilly here in Phoenix today, but overall a good day. So I started out in Dubuque, Iowa, and graduated from Iowa State University, moved to Chicago, and started in financial services with insurance and helping families navigate college funding. And after 13 years in the Midwest, I decided, hey, let's go for some sunshine, and moved to Phoenix and became a financial advisor, where I got connected with Bedrock Investment Advisors, and our specialty is working with federal employees, both current and retirees, in helping them plan for the future, learning what their benefits are, how to maximize those during the working years, and then, of course, projecting what their SERS or FERS retirement is going to look like. Social Security, their TSP, their FEGLI, their FEHB, and survivor benefit options. So we try to put together a retirement benefit review that's going to encompass a lot and take that guesswork out of the future. Do I have enough to retire now? What's that going to look like? And then we put together a financial strategy to help meet their needs and goals. So again, we have a roadmap to work from, even though that roadmap can change on a, yearly basis. So, the planning process and taking the guesswork out of it is kind of what we specialize
in. And something you hit on there, Todd, it's having the plan. And I know, just to let everyone know, like if you're not in the federal system like Todd's talking about, I think this is still a good episode for you to kind of get some of these best practices. I know when we start off really young, retiring is not on our mind. We just realize it's one of our most exciting days. We're in a new career, whatever it is. If you're in the military, law enforcement, or just in the private sector, you're happy you have a job. And then the next thing you're not thinking about is what happens in 25, 30, 40 years when I retire. You're going to develop this lifestyle, and next thing you know, you're going to say, hey, I want to keep that lifestyle, but you realize your pension doesn't really match what it is that you're earning. So I think for all those folks that are listening, this will be kind of good for everybody. And just real quick and turn over to Fab, I think the one thing that I learned in my career was if I could go back to the beginning, I would have done this at my 5-year mark, is reach out to a financial advisor to kind of understand, because Todd went over a lot of different aspects of retirement. And it's one of those things where if you think you're going to learn all that stuff in 2 days, you're fooling yourself. I think it's the federal government has retirement seminars. And if you're lucky enough to be chosen to go to one, they go over the topics that Todd said, but you're so overwhelmed. It's like an information tsunami of how to do this, how to do that. And you're probably wishing, like I said, man, I wish I knew this like when I was 5 years in, I could have started planning better. And that's, I think, for some of us, where I like to say, probably majority of, we don't have that plan, when we're ready to retire. And I think that's the part that scares us. It's now that, our days are getting numbered. How are we going to continue to live this lifestyle that we have now? Because we're going to be a couple $100 or maybe $1,000 in the hole. And what we're going to have to do, go get a second job. So I think just going forward for all those folks that are listening to this, just keep in mind, we'll give you the plan. I think Fab and I's plan that we use. And so far, like I said, it allows us to do this, this podcast allows us to do what we're wanting. Because I think Fab and I had great mentors and great friends and a lot of people that had that retirement savvy that helped guide us on the way. For those that don't, just listen to this and if you get benefit out of it, please share it with as many folks as you can, because I think everyone, I know just talking on the federal government, don't get the opportunities. I know Fab and I had attending these retirement seminars, but I think after today's episode, you'll have enough information to at least get the ball rolling. Fab, what else you got?
Yeah, thanks, John. So, one key point that you said is starting early. I mean, if you're out there and you're new in your career, I know you're not thinking about putting money away. But look, compound interest is a magic thing, right? So you start early, you start putting that money in earlier. When you reach that 20-year mark and that compound interest has rolled and rolled and rolled and rolled, you're going to see big benefits out of what you put in. I know a lot of newer employees don't want to make that commitment about putting money in early. The earlier you start and the earlier you put that money away, the better investment you're going to have when you retire. So, number one, you've got to get into this game early. You can't be looking at it 10 years down the road and go, oh, I've got 10 years left with the government. Now let me start investing. You've missed out on kind of the best 10 years when that compound interest could have been building up. So it's really important that early on, you talk to a financial advisor. I know you're not thinking about retirement, you're your first year in, but really you should be. You should be, because at the end of the day, it is part of your retirement. Those Social Security benefits, your TSP, your pension, those are the three major components of how you're going to make money. And if you're not invested in that TSP the right way, and you're not, making that money, you're going to miss out big. And when your 20 years or 25 years, whatever you stay in comes up, you're going to regret not putting that money in early. So Todd, what do you think about that? Like, should employees be, taking a little bit of hurt and maybe putting a little bit of extra money away early?
Oh, definitely. As you pointed out, compound interest is the miracle thing. And taking advantage of the Roth TSP as well as the traditional side is going to be extremely beneficial for down the road. You're not going to get that tax deduction early on, but that Roth account is going to grow tax deferred and come out tax free. And when you start to look at tax strategies for retirement, having that tax free access and income is extremely important. You don't, the goal is to lower your tax rate in retirement, but honestly, that doesn't happen for a lot of people. You're going to stay close to the same bracket, maybe bump down one. But to get to that 12% bracket is very difficult for a lot of people to obtain. So having money in that Roth account and build it from day one on is really important. Just, meet with a financial advisor and kind of learn what your benefits are, how to maximize them. And, every time you get a raise, increase what you're putting away. It'll make a world of difference.
Awesome. What do you see as like one of the biggest mistakes that some employees might make, in financial, just on their own with the TSP, investing? What do you see as some mistakes, people that come to you 15 years down the road and now they come to you, they got 5 years left and you're like, oh man, I wish I could have talked to you 10 years ago and, avoided you from doing this. So what do you see as some of the bigger mistakes?
Two major issues. Number one, making sure you're contributing at least that 5% into TSP. For those not in the government, making sure you're putting in your matching to your 401k. Free money's too hard to come by. So you want to take advantage of that. Just putting in your 5% over the years, though, is not going to reach your goals. You will have to be increasing that contribution percentage and amount. And, learning the information and learning what to do for the future is imperative. Waiting till the end, you don't want the big surprise. Taking advantage of market growth in TSP or a 401k over those years when you're young is imperative. You don't want to utilize just the G fund. You need that market exposure while you're young. Now, when you're getting closer to retirement, that's when you want to take a more conservative stance and say, hey, I've worked really hard for this money. I need to be able to protect some of that. The G fund, fixed indexed annuities, things like that outside of TSP that you can access are going to be imperative for wealth preservation and continued growth. So, learning how to invest at a young age and continuing that investment, and as you get closer to retirement, take that more conservative stance.
Yeah, Todd, those are some really great points. And I remember when I was working on the northern border, there was a guy that was up there, and he had on, I think, about 12 years. And again, whole topic of this conversation, he just didn't know, and the government doesn't really give you a breakdown of how to use TSP. You just you're like in the Serengeti, you just follow the herd, whatever they're doing, you're going to follow. And at the time, there was an old FBI agent that had something called Fed Trader that we would all just read some guy's interpretation of the market, and we would start switching our funds to match his. But this guy, a friend of mine, was up there for 12 years, and he had his money in the G fund the entire time. And we were in there talking about, the S and the I or whatever it was. And he looked and he said, what are you guys talking about? And we said, oh, in TSP, you can move your money around. And like his eyes, were like the biggest saucers. So for 12 years, he had it in the G fund. And when everyone was going around saying our balance, we had about 3 times as much money in our balance than he did. And he had 12 years in. So at the time I had 6, he had 12. He was miserable. And I think that's one of the big problems a lot of folks don't know. Like you said, get aggressive. For most of my career, I'm kind of like at the blackjack table. I'm all in. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. But when you do win, you win huge. And I think it's one of those things. When I did retire, I spent that year in the G fund, and I saw these gains I could have made. But what worried me more was the losses, because my time was coming towards an end. And I know in 07 and 08, when that happened, I had friends that lost $70,000, $80,000, and they were actually forced to work 2 more years because they were just too aggressive in the market. And I think that's something for everyone listening is, one, do your research, talk to friends, talk to other people as you can, talk to Todd, about how best to go about it. And I think you can see, a nice little return. But towards the end of your career, I think that's when you have to stop getting greedy, put everything in the G fund, or if you want, maybe 95% in the G, and, with that other 5%, do what you want. But be careful, because once you have it in the G fund, or excuse me, in the TSP, I think the next option you have to go, and I'll turn this over here to Fab, is what do I do now? I had my 25, 30, 35-year career. My TSP has whatever's in there. What do I do now? And I think that's something, talking to Todd, he was saying that the people who manage your money take it, from what you're getting, and the rate of return on your investment is also something that you have to look at. And I think talking to Todd kind of helped me through that puzzle of how best to go about this. But Fab, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it is important that as you're getting toward the end, and you reach out to the retirement people in your agency, and they're giving you close to what your number's going to be for your pension, that you're able to make those decisions on what you're going to do with your TSP when you get out. And I a lot of people will say, well, the government gives us this option to leave it in TSP. And look, that is an option. If that's an option, you choose. But it's not, TSP is not an easy system just to get into, move things around. You really can't do that once you retire. The real way that you're going to continue to create wealth is really looking at a financial advisor and getting that money put into somebody who, wants to also make money. So they want to see your money grow so that they make money. And, you don't have to take everything out of TSP. Like I left it a certain amount in so that I could take an annuity out of that to supplement my income. But I moved, 80% of what I had over to a financial advisor, and that money has continued to grow. I've been retired for a year and a half, and I've made $85,000 this year. The market wasn't that great, but I still had an $85,000 increase off of the money that I had in there. So for me, that's a win. An extra $85,000 put into my money. I'm not touching that. It's with a financial advisor. Trying not to look at it, but I do like to look at it and see those gains that are coming. But I also did leave a little bit of money in TSP so that I could enjoy a good life. I know that I've got that 20% in the TSP. I can take money off of it. I can make a draw off of it. If there's a big purchase that I want to make, I know I can. If there's something big and drastic that happens, I know I have access to money. So Todd, is that a good strategy? Making sure that you have some liquid asset that you can turn around to and be able to get money out.
Oh, absolutely. You never want to tie up all your funds in one place to begin with, but yeah, making sure you have liquidity in your portfolio is very important. Um, and planning ahead. You know, retirement brings up a lot of questions. What is my lifestyle going to be in retirement? Is it going to be travel? Am I going to work part-time? Am I going to turn a hobby into a business? All of those things as well that you need to start thinking about. And one of the things that I will say in, preparing for retirement, and I think John has brought this up before, when you look to do your retirement application, you want to start 6 to 12 months out, because OPM is going to take 3 to 9 months to finalize your retirement. And so getting with HR and getting that application in and to OPM and getting that situated and done is going to relieve a lot of stress. And that's where, again, having liquid funds during that period of time in your life is also going to be imperative. Using your extra leave at the end of the year or at retirement, things like that. Yes.
And Todd, that's a perfect segue. Just for those folks that are retiring, we can give you our observations of best practices that we use. But I actually started thinking about my retirement about 3-4 years out before going, just knowing on this date I'm going to retire. And, my advice to everyone out there is start saving your money, because like Todd said, there's like this period of darkness where you get no more paychecks coming in. You're literally in the dark, and you're praying to the Lords above us that your retirement specialist is actually somebody competent and working for you. And if you don't have that, you're going to be stressing. And that's the one thing to avoid the stress, is to start saving your money early. Then the second thing, and like Todd brought up, is for those folks in the government, go to the HR portal and request your estimate. And what that's going to show you more or less is how much your pension more or less will be. And then you kind of get a figure, and you can figure, can I retire or should I start working? And my other little John Martinez best tip is, if you're happy doing what you're doing, my advice, stay working. The minute you retire, you're going to realize 6 months, I shouldn't have done this, that having all this free time is not what I wanted. And I know there's friends that reached out 6 months and they were living on the beach, I think in Honduras. They said they can hear the waves hitting out there, and they were miserable. They said out of 6 months of the year, it's fine, but the other 6, they're just fidgety. So have that real good discussion. And if you love what you're doing, my advice, stay doing it. But if you're ready to retire and you have your plan, definitely look at it. Once you do your estimate, fill out that retirement application. It's going to be difficult. I think a lot of folks that are retiring now, it gets a little tricky. You know, the one thing that when I submitted mine, it's they make you break up your INS and DHS time frames, and if you were in the military, if you had other jobs, it requires you to list all of these different agencies you worked for. So, and then it asks for your marriage certificate and all these other things. But my point is, if you give yourself like a year out, it's going to be comfortable. You'll feel fine. And then my advice is at the 6-month mark, submit your application. You can find what dates you want. It tells you like what dates are you thinking about. But if your retirement is relatively coming up quick, they're going to process your application first. So definitely get that in there. I submitted mine 6 months early. I got one kickback saying I needed to break up my time some more, and that was it. And then my boss at the time said same thing to me. He said, "Hey, John, I did it just like you, and they told me everything was hunky dory. And then as soon as I retired, there's all these problems. And now you're retired, and they're saying go back, look at this, change this, and now there's this panic starting to come in because you're like, wait, I did everything right. I did this 6 months out. They said nothing. As soon as I retired, here's all these problems. So just prepare for that. And then once you retire, what's going to happen is your last day working, you're going to get one more check, your final check that will come in a week after you retire or 2 weeks. And then after that, 30 days to the date you retired, you'll get your annual leave check. My advice, start off the year with 240 hours for those in the federal government. Don't take any leave. And then as soon as you retire, I retired in September and I made about $23,000. That is going to be with your savings plus your paycheck plus your annual leave. That's going to be the money that's going to carry you over until your pension kicks in. After that, there's nothing. You hear from nobody. And I know Fab and I were calling each other saying, you hear anything? You hear anything? And next thing you know, you'll get in the mail from OPM as this thing they call a CS card. It has this number on it, your retirement number. And then after that, 2 weeks later, you'll get this booklet and it will tell you everything that's going to happen in your retirement. It tells you your pension. It tells you everything you need to know. And it's personalized for you. For me, it was about 90 days. On January 1st, I retired September 30th. On January 1st, I got my first partial pension payment. In February, it was like doubled. It was like $8,000. And then in March, it went back down. And then I think in April, I started getting my regular pension. But again, there was no stress in my life because I had a plan. I talked to friends, I executed, but now the big plan after that was now I'm retired, I'm getting my pension. What do I do with my TSP? And then that's where I personally did a lot of research. While I was working, I was trying to get as much retirement seminars for the office, and that's something that Todd can provide as well. I'll have him talk about that in a second. But now I had to do my research. I reached out to a bunch of friends, and I asked, what do you guys do with your 401k? And I asked about 9 guys. I had 9 different responses because some had kids in college, some had kids in school, some wanted to travel, some didn't. So you just need to reach out to those folks. And if you're still like, man, John, this is too much, call Fab and I. We'll sit down and we'll talk to you. But that's in a nutshell what's going to happen when you retire and you get your pension. Also, too, this year, I noticed I got the 2% increase, and I think like locality pay that came into my pension. So it went up about $100. But that's my thoughts on it. I mean, I'll turn over to Fab for his feelings when he was going through retirement.
So Martinez had the perfect retirement. Mine was a nightmare. So I retired 1 month before. Actually, I retired the end of July. John retired in September, and it took them until the end of December to get me partial payments, and I didn't start to get full payments until February. And in that time, John got his leave balance paid out to him in 30 days. I did not get my leave balance paid out to me until 45 days after. I mean, it was just he had a great person working on his, mine not so great. So, that's why it's real important that you're saving your money, your money when you retirement. So you have money in the bank that you can rely on. And I did. I had a nice buffer. So when my check for my annual leave did not come in on that 30-day mark, I wasn't stressing too much. I started to stress a little bit when I hit 40 days. Finally, that 45th day, it came in. I got a nice, huge check for my leave. And then I was, okay, I can hold on for a little while. And then they were not paying me. And, I didn't get those partial payments till December, and I didn't get full payments until February. So it could happen. So make sure you save up as much annual leave as you can, sell that balance so it gives you a nice big check. Make sure you're, that year out, you're not making big buys. You're not buying a new car. You're not buying things a year out. Make sure you got money in the bank, some savings in the bank. That way you're ready to retire and you're not stressing about where money's going to come. Once that annuity, the pension kicks in, you'll be okay. Believe me, the pension will be nice. If you put a little bit of annuity to a side, you'll be getting those little bit extra payments. You'll be okay. It's just that little bit of time in between before those payments get made that you might have some worries. So, John and I were on the opposite ends of the spectrum. I didn't have a great person working on mine. He had a really good person working on his. So, it could go anywhere from left to right or straight in the middle. But again, that's why it's important to really get your savings up. And again, it's important to get out there and be talking to a financial advisor before this. So Todd, I know, they should probably come to you really early in their career. But if they haven't, and they're thinking about retirement right now, what are some things that you can do as a financial advisor for them 2-3 years out? Can you write projections? Can you start to look at things? What are some of the things that you can offer that they can really look at?
Certainly. We start working, especially when they're about 5 years out, and say, all right, we're going to do a projection for your FERS or SERS. We're going to do a projection on your Social Security, pull those statements so that there isn't going to be a big surprise. What do you have built up in TSP? Let's start to look at some options. And if you're going to have to use those funds to supplement your income, or is it going to be a place to grab and go for vacations or lifestyle or what? But we can start that conversation prior to retirement and put those projections in place to take some of the stress out of your life. We also, with our affiliation with public sector retirement educators, can do on-site seminars, and we now have webinars that the federal employees can download at their own time, own pace, and click through. And they'll have an option to work with an advisor at the end. So we've developed some systems that, are going to be very important and easy to access, but very informational.
Yeah, no, Todd, that's huge, and that's something for all those folks out there. If you can read this on your own at your tempo, do that. And for those managers out there, if you can get these retirement seminars going, I would do as much as you can get funding for. There's so much information. You could literally do these once a year and still not even catch up. And I think you get that more intimate understanding of your retirement by talking to someone like Todd, and they can go through your numbers, because it's no longer just like a theory, like, oh, there's all these things, and they literally hit you with so much. When you talk to someone like Todd, you'll feel at ease because you're actually looking at your numbers with your retirement. It's more personalized, and I think you'll actually have that comfort. So when you do retire, there's not that hidden fear. And once we get done with this, I'll post the sites that Todd's mentioning in our description, so you can go look at it. Go look at Todd. I asked Todd to come on here as a friend. Todd is my financial advisor. I looked at many people, in California and here, and I settled. I didn't settle. Todd was the best option to go forward with, and I'm completely happy with the services. And the one thing with Todd is, you email him, he emails you back literally in 5 minutes. It's not this waiting 2-3 days. So Todd is very punctual, and he's quick with a great response, and takes out time to meet with you and assess your needs. So if you guys, if you're listening from some other part of the country, just reach out to Todd and figure out what's a game plan, and see who in your area, maybe can help. And I think if you see the services that Todd provides, I think everyone will feel comfortable with, and we'll add his email and all his contact info. So my suggestion is, for those folks listening, please share this with everyone that is under this umbrella in DHS, the immigration world, with TSP. I think it'd be helpful for them, because I think a lot of people stress about this. And right now it's January 8th. And I think right now a lot of people are saying, hey, I'm going to retire in December. And I think if they get this, they can actually have that nice head start onto retirement. Hopefully they save their money, and hopefully, financially they're there. Because the one thing I hate to see is people, spend 25, 30 years keeping this country safe and secure. Next, retiring, and there's stress that's not needed. So that's my 2 cents, and I hope it worked. I mean, like I said, so far it's worked for me. I'm happy, comfortable, and I'm glad. I have the friends that I have, the mentors that I have, and I have Todd in my corners, making my retirement now blissful. And I'll turn over to Fab for closing.
Yeah, all great points, John. And this show is really important for you guys and gals that are out there getting ready to retire. You really got to look to a financial advisor. You just got to get on the ball about it. You don't want to be stressed out going into retirement. And look, getting with a financial advisor early is just smart. It's smart. Talk to somebody very early in your career, and then maybe you don't have to talk to them again for another 5-10 years, and then 5 years out, talk to them again and start getting your planning going. But it's a smart thing to do. If you got questions, contact Todd. And Todd, we're going to close the show out. So do you want to have some final comments?
Well, I just appreciate, the opportunity to be on here, and, people feel free to reach out to me with questions. We're here to help.
All right. Thanks a lot, Todd. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.